You're irrelevant, woman. My father owns this courtroom, and you will learn that today. Sit down, Miss Hartwell. Your father's naming became evidence, and your freedom ends here.
The courtroom camera captured the exact moment a senator's daughter realized her last name couldn't save her anymore. Madison Hartwell, 26 years old, designer sunglasses pushed back on her blonde hair, diamond tennis bracelet catching the fluorescent lights, stood frozen as Judge Judy held up a single piece of paper that would destroy not just her lawsuit, not just her reputation, but her father's entire political career and any future she thought she was entitled to. What was on that paper? A text message Madison sent 3 weeks earlier that read, "Just found another immigrant to squeeze. Dad will make the legal problem disappear like always. These people are too scared to fight back." Within 6 hours of this episode airing, that text would be seen by 67 million people across every social media platform imaginable. Within 12 hours, the FBI would open a federal investigation. Within 3 days, Senator Robert Hartwell, the man who spent 20 years building a law and order political brand and positioning himself for a presidential run, would announce his retirement in disgrace. And it all started because his daughter made one catastrophic miscalculation. She thought Judge Judy was just another obstacle her father's power could remove. Before we show you exactly how Judge Judy systematically dismantled this entitled senator's daughter piece by piece, exposing a pattern of fraud so calculated and so cruel that it sparked federal criminal charges, you need to understand something critical. This wasn't just about one spoiled rich girl losing a case. This was about a predator who had spent 2 years deliberately targeting immigrant small business owners, using her father's Senate influence as a weapon to extort settlements, and building what prosecutors would later call a racketeering enterprise. Madison Hartwell walked into that courtroom believing she had already won because she always won. Her father's name opened every door, closed every investigation, and made every problem disappear with a single phone call. She had scammed $67,000 from hard-working people who came to America with nothing, and she was about to demand $85,000 more from a single mother who had built an event planning business with her own hands over 15 years. But what Madison didn't know, what her expensive lawyers didn't warn her about, what her senator father couldn't protect her from, was that Judge Judy had spent 3 days personally investigating her background and had uncovered something so damning that it would end multiple careers in a single afternoon. I need you to do something for me right now. Smash that like button because what you're about to witness is the most satisfying destruction of entitled privilege ever captured on television, and the algorithm needs to know that millions of people are hungry for this kind of justice. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and if you've ever dealt with someone who thought their family name made them untouchable, hit that subscribe button immediately because I promise you, the moment when Madison realizes her entire world is collapsing is so perfectly brutal, so completely deserved, that you'll want to rewatch it 100 times. Madison Hartwell was born into Washington, D.C. royalty, the kind of family where your kindergarten classmates become senators and Supreme Court justices, where summer means Martha's Vineyard and winter means Aspen, where your trust fund generates more money annually than most Americans earn in a lifetime. Her father, Senator Robert Hartwell, represented Virginia for 3 terms, sat on the powerful Judiciary Committee, and cultivated a public image as a champion of law and order and traditional American values. Behind that carefully constructed facade was a man who had spent 26 years enabling his daughter's worst impulses, making her problems disappear with strategically placed phone calls, buried police reports, and sealed court records. Madison grew up learning that consequences were for other people, that rules were suggestions, and that her last name was a magic word that could erase any mistake. She was expelled from Georgetown Law School for academic dishonesty, submitting a paper written entirely by a paid service, and when the honor board moved to permanently dismiss her, Senator Hartwell made 3 phone calls and suddenly the expulsion became a voluntary withdrawal for medical reasons. She accumulated 14 traffic violations including 2 driving under the influence arrests, and every single one disappeared from her record before reaching a courtroom, dismissed due to procedural irregularities that coincidentally occurred whenever Senator Hartwell's chief of staff contacted the local prosecutor's office. She had a pattern of abusive behavior toward service workers, screaming at waitresses over minor issues, berating hotel staff, throwing tantrums at retail employees, and in every situation she would invoke her father's name like a protective spell that made accountability vanish. By age 26, Madison Hartwell had never faced a single real consequence for anything she had ever done wrong. That was about to change in the most spectacular and public way possible, and the woman who would deliver that overdue reckoning was a 79-year-old judge from Brooklyn who had built a 40-year career on one simple principle: nobody is above the truth. Elena Rodriguez was everything Madison Hartwell despised, a self-made success story that required actual work instead of inherited wealth and political connections. At 41 years old, Elena had immigrated from the Dominican Republic at age 19 with $300 in her pocket, a suitcase full of dreams, and absolutely no safety net. She worked as a hotel housekeeper during the day, cleaned office buildings at night, and took English classes on weekends while saving every possible dollar toward a future she could barely imagine but refused to stop chasing. By 25, she had saved enough to start a small event planning business from her one-bedroom apartment, coordinating quinceañeras and small weddings for her immigrant community. By 30, she had moved into a modest office space and hired her first employee. By 40, Elena's Elegant Events had become one of the most respected planning companies in the D.C. area, known for turning clients' visions into reality with meticulous attention to detail, creative problem-solving, and the kind of personal investment that only comes from someone who remembers what it feels like to have nothing. Elena supported 2 kids through college on her business income, volunteered with immigrant advocacy organizations every weekend, and maintained a perfect 5-star rating across every review platform through 12 years of flawless service. She had planned over 800 events without a single complaint, building her reputation on reliability, creativity, and genuine care for every client regardless of their budget. That spotless reputation made her the perfect target for Madison Hartwell's twisted scheme. Madison had discovered something darkly efficient over 2 years of trial and error. Immigrant business owners made ideal victims because they feared authority, worried about their immigration status even when documented, and typically lacked the financial resources to fight prolonged legal battles against wealthy opponents. Madison would hire them for expensive events, allow them to invest their own money paying vendors and suppliers up front, wait until after the event was completed successfully, then dispute the charges and threaten lawsuits demanding enormous settlements. The pattern was devastatingly simple. She would claim the services were substandard, manufacture complaints that contradicted photographic evidence, then have her father's office make informal threatening contacts with licensing boards or business bureaus. Most victims settled immediately for $15,000 to $25,000, desperate to make the nightmare end before legal fees bankrupted them completely. Madison had successfully executed this scam against 3 vendors before Elena. Sophia Kim, a Korean caterer who settled for $18,000 after Senator Hartwell's aide visited her restaurant and mentioned pending health inspections. Ahmed Hassan, an Egyptian photographer who paid $22,000 after the senator's office contacted his business license provider about unspecified regulatory concerns. Maria Santos, a Brazilian florist who handed over $15,000 when Madison threatened to report her to immigration authorities despite Maria being a naturalized citizen for 12 years. When Madison hired Elena for her 26th birthday party with a $45,000 budget, Elena threw herself into creating something spectacular. She coordinated with an exclusive Georgetown venue, hired premium caterers, designed custom floral arrangements, arranged live entertainment, and personally managed every detail to ensure perfection. The party was absolutely flawless. 200 guests danced until 2 in the morning under crystal chandeliers and elaborate decorations that transformed the venue into something from a luxury magazine. Madison posted 17 Instagram photos that night with captions raving about the incredible event, tagging Elena's business, calling her a goddess and a miracle worker. Every single guest left talking about how it was the most beautiful party they had ever attended. Elena went home exhausted but deeply satisfied, believing she had just executed the event of her career. 2 weeks later, Madison disputed $32,000 on her credit card, claiming the event was a disaster. She sent Elena a legal demand letter claiming breach of contract, substandard services, and reputational damage, demanding $50,000 in settlement plus keeping the disputed charges. When Elena refused and provided the contract, receipts, and hundreds of photos proving the event's success, Madison's lawyer filed an $85,000 lawsuit. Then the real nightmare began, and Elena discovered exactly what happened when an immigrant entrepreneur refused to become another quiet victim of America's most entitled predator. The assault on Elena's business was military-grade psychological warfare executed with the precision of someone who had done this before and knew exactly which pressure points would break a small business owner. Within 48 hours of filing the lawsuit, Madison unleashed a coordinated attack across every platform where Elena's business existed. 17 one-star reviews appeared overnight from accounts created that same day, all using suspiciously similar language about unprofessionalism, rudeness, and substandard service. Madison posted on neighborhood Facebook groups with detailed fabricated stories about how Elena had humiliated her in front of guests, ruined her special day, and refused to take accountability. She tagged every wedding planning group, every local business forum, every community page where Elena's potential clients might see the posts. The comments sections filled with sympathetic responses from people who had no idea they were participating in a calculated destruction campaign. Elena watched helplessly as her phone stopped ringing. 8 booked events canceled within 2 weeks, representing over $120,000 in lost revenue. Brides who had been excited about their upcoming weddings suddenly had concerns about Elena's reliability. Corporate clients who had used her services for years politely explained they needed to explore other options. Her business line of credit came under review when the bank saw the negative publicity and pending lawsuit. She was spending $3,000 monthly on a lawyer just to respond to discovery motions that seemed designed purely to drain her resources rather than actually build Madison's case. The prestigious Georgetown venue where she had executed hundreds of successful events quietly informed her that they could no longer accept her bookings, carefully avoiding mentioning that Senator Hartwell's chief of staff had personally called the venue owner to express concerns about working with vendors under legal scrutiny. Elena's savings evaporated paying legal fees and covering business expenses while her income collapsed. She lay awake at night doing the math, realizing that settling for $20,000 would be financially devastating, but continuing to fight might cost her $40,000 in legal fees with no guarantee of winning against a senator's daughter with unlimited resources. Her kids begged her not to give up. Her lawyer gently suggested that settlement might be the practical choice. Her priest told her to pray for guidance. But something inside Elena, something forged during 19 years of building a life from absolute nothing, refused to surrender to this spoiled child who had never worked a real day in her life. Elena had survived poverty, immigration, discrimination, and every obstacle America could throw at a Dominican woman with an accent and a dream. She was not going to let Madison Hartwell become the thing that finally broke her. That decision to fight, that refusal to become another quiet settlement statistic, triggered a chain of events that would expose Madison's entire operation. Elena contacted every vendor Madison had previously sued, discovering the pattern that no single victim had seen because they thought their nightmare was isolated. She compiled evidence obsessively, printing every Instagram post, saving every text message, documenting every interaction with timestamps and screenshots. When her pro bono lawyer from an immigrant advocacy organization filed their response to Madison's lawsuit, they included something unusual: a countersuit for malicious prosecution, fraud, and extortion, along with a request that the case be heard on Judge Judy's television court, knowing the exposure might be their only weapon against unlimited legal resources. Here's what I need you to understand before we go into that courtroom. Hit that like button right now if you want to see entitled privilege meet its absolute destruction. Because what Judge Judy uncovered during her 3-day personal investigation wasn't just evidence of Madison's guilt. It was a complete blueprint of her criminal enterprise, including text messages Madison thought were private, phone records showing her father's office making threatening calls, and testimony from previous victims who were finally willing to speak publicly. Subscribe and turn on notifications because the courtroom confrontation you're about to witness includes the single most devastating verbal takedown in television history. And trust me, you'll want to see Madison's face the exact moment she realizes her father's name just became evidence of conspiracy rather than protection from consequences. The truth was about to cost the Hartwell family absolutely everything, and the cameras were rolling. The courtroom atmosphere was electric the moment Madison Hartwell walked through those doors, and everyone present could feel they were about to witness something extraordinary. She arrived 15 minutes late, a power play she had learned from watching her father make senators wait, wearing a $3,000 Chanel suit in courtroom-appropriate navy that somehow still screamed wealth and entitlement. Her lawyer walked beside her, a senior partner from one of DC's most expensive firms who clearly considered small claims television court beneath his dignity but couldn't refuse when a senator's daughter called. Madison's $800 Louboutin heels clicked against the floor with the confidence of someone who had never lost anything that mattered, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light as she casually checked her phone while walking past Elena without a single glance of acknowledgement. She settled into her chair with the bored expression of someone waiting for a minor inconvenience to resolve itself, completely unaware that Judge Judy had spent 72 hours building a case that would destroy her life. Judge Judy opened the proceedings with her signature directness, cutting through the courtroom formality like a scalpel through tissue. Miss Hartwell, you're suing Miss Rodriguez for $85,000, claiming her event planning services for your birthday party were substandard and caused you reputational damage. But I'm looking at 180 photos from that event, and I'm seeing what appears to be an absolutely flawless party. I'm also seeing your Instagram posts from that night calling Miss Rodriguez a goddess and tagging her business with 5-star reviews. So help me understand how a goddess who threw you a flawless party suddenly became worth an $85,000 lawsuit. Madison smiled that practiced smile she had perfected at Georgetown fundraisers, the one that said she was being patient with someone who simply didn't understand how the world actually worked. Your Honor, social media isn't reality. I posted those things because I didn't want to embarrass Elena publicly at the time. But the truth is, she was unprofessional, the decorations were tacky compared to what I had approved, and several of my guests commented that the whole event felt cheap. When I tried to address these concerns privately, she became defensive and refused to offer any refund or compensation. Judge Judy's expression didn't change, but anyone who had watched her for more than 5 minutes knew that complete stillness meant someone was about to be eviscerated. Let me make sure I understand your testimony, Miss Hartwell. You posted 17 separate times during and after the event, all praising Miss Rodriguez. You have 180 photos showing magazine-quality decorations. You have testimony from 47 guests saying it was the most beautiful party they'd ever attended. But you want this court to believe that secretly, in your mind, everything was actually terrible, and you were just lying to your 200 guests and 30,000 Instagram followers about having an amazing time. Is that your position? Madison's lawyer shifted uncomfortably, but Madison herself seemed unfazed, even slightly amused. Your Honor, I come from a family where we handle conflicts privately and professionally. I wasn't going to create drama at my own party or trash someone's business on social media like some people do. I gave her the courtesy of private feedback, and when she refused to be reasonable, I had no choice but to pursue legal remedies. The arrogance in her voice was breathtaking, the absolute certainty that her version of reality would be accepted simply because she was the one speaking it. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Miss Hartwell, I want to ask you about some of your other legal remedies. In the past 2 years, you've filed 4 lawsuits against small business vendors, all of them immigrant-owned, all claiming similar issues with service quality. Sophia Kim settled with you for $18,000. Ahmed Hassan paid you $22,000. Maria Santos gave you $15,000. That's $55,000 in settlements, and now you're here demanding $85,000 more from Miss Rodriguez. That seems like quite a pattern. Do you have particularly bad luck with vendors, or is something else happening here? The courtroom went absolutely silent. Madison's smile faltered for the first time, just a flicker of concern crossing her face before the mask of confidence returned. Your Honor, I have high standards. I come from a family that expects excellence. If vendors can't deliver what they promise, they shouldn't be in business. It's not my fault that some people aren't capable of serving clients at my level. Those words, that casual dismissal of hardworking immigrants as simply not capable of serving her level, would be replayed millions of times across social media within hours. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. She pulled out a folder, thick with documents, and the slight smile that crossed her face was absolutely predatory. Miss Hartwell, let me tell you what I found when I investigated your background. Let me tell you what really happens when someone like you targets people like Elena Rodriguez. And let me show you exactly what your father has been doing to make your legal problems disappear, because that stops today. Judge Judy opened that folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper, holding it up so the courtroom cameras could capture it perfectly. This is a text message you sent to your friend Chelsea 3 weeks before you sued Miss Rodriguez. Would you like me to read it out loud, or would you prefer to tell this courtroom what it says? Madison's face went from confident to confused to horrified in 3 seconds flat. That's private correspondence. You can't use that. My lawyer will object to admissibility. Judge Judy's voice cut through her protest like ice. Miss Hartwell, you waived privacy when you filed a fraudulent lawsuit in my courtroom. Your lawyer can object all he wants, but this message is about to become public record. So let me read it for everyone watching. The courtroom leaned forward collectively, sensing the kill shot was coming. Just found another immigrant to squeeze. Dad will make the legal problem disappear like always. These people are too scared to fight back. $45,000 event means I can demand at least $85,000 in settlement. She'll pay $20,000 within a month. Easy money. The silence that followed was absolute and suffocating. Even Madison's expensive lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. The gallery erupted in gasps and whispers. Elena pressed her hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her face, finally understanding that someone believed her, that someone had found the proof everyone said didn't exist. Madison tried to speak, her voice shaking. That was taken out of context. That was just venting. I didn't mean it like that. Judge Judy held up her hand for silence, and the entire courtroom obeyed instantly. I have 11 more text messages just like this one. I have phone records showing your father's office made 18 calls to business bureaus, licensing boards, and venue owners on your behalf over 2 years. I have testimony from 3 previous victims who are now filing to vacate their settlements based on fraud. I have evidence of a systematic criminal enterprise where you deliberately target vulnerable immigrant business owners, use your father's political influence to threaten and intimidate them, then extort settlements that total over $67,000. This isn't a civil dispute, Miss Hartwell. This is racketeering. This is conspiracy. This is federal wire fraud. And I spent 3 days making sure every piece of evidence I found is already in the hands of the U.S. Attorney's Office. Madison collapsed in her chair, all pretense of confidence shattered completely. Her lawyer was frantically whispering that they needed to leave immediately, that anything she said now could be used against her in criminal proceedings. But Judge Judy wasn't finished delivering justice. My ruling is as follows. Judgment for the defendant, Miss Elena Rodriguez. Miss Hartwell, you will pay Miss Rodriguez $32,000 for the fraudulent charge dispute, $15,000 for her legal fees, and $38,000 in punitive damages for malicious prosecution and attempted extortion. Total judgment, $85,000. Furthermore, I am issuing a formal referral to the FBI for investigation of wire fraud, extortion, and conspiracy. I am also forwarding my complete findings to the Senate Ethics Committee regarding Senator Hartwell's use of his office to facilitate his daughter's criminal enterprise. Miss Rodriguez, you did something incredibly brave by refusing to be another silent victim. You've helped expose a predator and protected every future immigrant entrepreneur from becoming her next target. The courtroom exploded in applause. Elena was sobbing, her lawyer hugging her, the weight of 14 months of terror finally lifting from her shoulders. Madison was being escorted out by bailiffs, her face streaked with tears and twisted in disbelief that her magic last name had finally failed her. If you believe Madison Hartwell got exactly what she deserved for preying on immigrant business owners, absolutely destroy that like button right now. Comment justice served if watching entitled Privilege Meet Accountability just restored your faith in the legal system. Subscribe and smash that notification bell because karma doesn't just exist, it has perfect timing and sometimes it wears a judge's robe. Share this video with everyone who needs to see what happens when you think your family name makes you untouchable. Madison learned the hardest way possible that in Judge Judy's courtroom, the only name that matters is the truth. Thanks for watching and remember, respect costs nothing but entitlement costs everything.